Good morning, and welcome to the October 6th, 2022 meeting of the Riverfront Design Committee. My name is John Postick, and I'm the chair of the committee. The following guidelines are in place for meetings in the City Council chambers at City Hall. Only the south entrance to City Hall will be open for access to the building. For exiting the building, all exits can be used. Air purifying machines have been installed in the chamber. Hand sanitizer machines and disposable face masks will be available. When called on, applicants and speakers will come to the front podium to speak. Only one person at a time should come to the podium. Speak into the microphone, please, and identify yourself to provide your address for the record when you begin speaking. Address your comments to the committee. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Citizens may address the committee on agenda items by responding to chair's call for speakers during discussion on each item and signing the speaker's log on the podium. All comments must be relevant to the item. The chair or presiding officer may, in his or her discretion, prohibit a person from addressing the committee and/or remove that person from the council chambers if that person commits any disorderly or disruptive behavior. Please see the agenda for more information about these requirements. If you parked in the Sheridan Walker parking garage north of John Rex Elementary School or the Arts District parking garage immediately south of City Hall, staff can provide a parking validation ticket to you. The agenda and documents are located at https://okc.primegov.com/public/portal. You would then select the Riverfront Design Committee meeting, then click on an agenda item, and the relevant documents will come up below the item. I would like to welcome our new committee member, Tiffany Ramirez. Desiree, will you please call the roll?
Committee Member Postick.
Present.
Committee Member Heisel.
Present.
Committee Member Dean.
Present.
Committee Member Howard.
Present.
Committee Member Larson.
Present.
Committee Member Montoya.
Present.
Committee Member Ramirez.
Present.
Committee Member Templeton.
Present.
It's good to have a full house. Agenda item number 2, approval of minutes from the September 1st, 2022 committee meeting. I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Thank you. Moved by Heisel, seconded by Howard.
There it is.
I apologize.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, and the motion passes. Agenda item number 3, cases withdrawn, there are none. Agenda item number 4, continuance requests, there are none. Item number 5, consent docket, there is none. Item number 6, cases for individual consideration.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to have to recuse myself. Our firm is working on this project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howard. Agenda item number 6A is SRCA-22-00011 at 240 Centennial Drive.
So some of you might have been trying to figure out where this is. You might see it, but can't figure out how to get there. So hopefully the pictures I took will help you. It's located immediately south of the boulevard, which is elevated at this point. The way I got to it is I turned like I was going to park and go to a movie theater on the north side of the boulevard, and you drive all the way across the parking lot. And then it's adjacent to the overflow parking lot for Bass Pro Shop, so that might help people. And you can see where it is in relationship to the land run monument components, because there's 3 of those components. The closest one being where the 2 guys in the cannon is, which is right there. And then you have the Bricktown Canal, and then you have the river basin where the river taxi turns around. So there's a lot going on there. And currently, it's nice and green. It has some trees adjacent to the trail. And as you saw from the application, there's a component of the pathway that they're relocating. And so to the left is that overflow parking lot for Bass Pro Shop. And the subject site's on the right. Looking back the other way so you can see how elevated the boulevard is. And so the subject site is on the left. And I don't know why this is going so fast. So this is looking to the southwest where you can see the biggest group of the Land Run Monument statues, and then this is the cannon with the 2 members. This is the closest piece that I pointed out on that aerial. And this is standing kind of, the subject site's to the left, and I'm looking across that parking lot that's there. Let me go back up to... This one right here, there's a ramp and kind of a wall that's built as you're walking to go to the Land Run Monument, and I'm looking directly north at the subject site. So this is the subject site that we're talking about. So as you could see from the staff report, there are several items that they're requesting variances from. This is a very unusual site. It's a very unusual location. It happens to be located in both the downtown design district because of the zoning and in Scenic River. And per the ordinance, if it's in both, it comes to you all for approval. So the scope of work that the applicant provided stated the truck yard is a unique concept that features large outdoor spaces, curated bar offerings, local food trucks, and live music in a family-friendly atmosphere that welcomes guests of all ages and their dogs. This is a come-as-you-are bar garden with each location designed specifically for the communities that surround them. The truck yard concept is centered around the belief that the wider the demographic that can be served, the more inclusive communities can feel as a whole. So I'll just start at the beginning, and we'll go one by one through the issues that they need variances for. So the first one is they're proposing to construct a 1-story building in the zoning, which is part of the downtown design district in DBD. The minimum is 3 stories or 50 feet, which if this was in a normal part of downtown, you would probably be looking at some adjacent buildings that were 2 to 4 stories tall, depending on when they were built. But there are no buildings immediately adjacent. To the west, on the other side of the canal, there's a 1-story, it's kind of a warehouse shop building, and the Parks Department has a 1-story, I think that's like a service building that they use. So the street frontage for this project is actually the elevated Oklahoma City Boulevard, which is very unusual. So the street that we're using is actually up approximately 23 feet above the surface of this project. And the proposed height of their building is 20 foot 9 inches, right at 21 feet. And the applicant stated, I provided their Board of Adjustment application for you so you could see the comments that they were providing to the Board of Adjustment. They feel that applying the minimum height requirement would appear very out of place for this property and would create an unusual hardship for the property owner. And as I stated, this is not a typical DBD area due to its proximity to that elevated boulevard, as well as how you have to get to it. And you're driving through parking lots to get to it. Proposed use is one that could serve as an amenity to people already using the trails, the Bricktown Canal, and the Oklahoma River, in addition to attracting new users to the area. With this in mind, staff supports the requested variance to allow a 1-story building at this location. The second thing is, and this is also a DBD requirement, that they're proposing to construct a building that's going to be set back more than 10 feet from their street frontage, which is Oklahoma City Boulevard, that elevated roadway. We have a maximum 10-foot, we call it the build-to line in DBD. And if you've been out there, or you've been anywhere where there's an elevated roadway, maybe Chicago where the L is or whatever, and you're standing next to elevated roadways, it's a very, to me, it's a very unusual feeling, and I can understand why they would want to be set back more from that roadway. Their comment is, result in increased noise pollution from the traffic if they were that close to the roadway. They're proposing to be about 35 feet from that roadway. It won't have the same feel as downtown. If you had a building on Main Street and somebody wanted to be set back 35 feet, it would be extremely unusual in that setting. But in this setting, it's not really that unusual. So as I previously had stated, this proposed use is one that could serve as an amenity to people already using the trails. And I think the same comments that I made about the minimum height is also applicable to them wanting to be set back more. And because of that, staff is supporting their request to be set back more than 10 feet. On to signs. There's a lot for signs, and these are a combination of river regulations, Chapter 3 sign regulations, which are currently still in place. And I've referenced all of those. I've included definitions, and the issues are with their freestanding signs. In River, we only allow monument signs, maximum height 10 feet. So a monument sign, the base has to be at least half the width of the sign itself, and pole signs are prohibited. And so they have numerous signs that I talk about in here at different sizes, different heights that they're requesting. And so I broke down all the issues that we needed to talk about under considerations. And they're requesting additional signs. So number allowed, and that's a Chapter 3 sign reg. They're allowed 1 per street frontage. But if they had more than 200, so if they had 400 lineal foot of street frontage, they could have 2. Well, they don't have enough to have more than 1, and they're requesting 3. This location is very unique, and people really need to be able to see it. And their signs are, I'm not saying this to offend anybody, but they're kind of quirky, they're different, they definitely attract your attention, and they fit in with what they plan on doing on this site. Type of sign, as I mentioned before, they're actually considered pole signs because they don't meet the definition of a freestanding sign. Maximum size. So in Scenic River, the maximum size is 50 square feet. And they're proposing 320 square foot sign and a 76.5 square foot sign for 2 of those signs. And they need variances for those. Maximum height in River is 10 feet, as I mentioned. And they're proposing 2 freestanding signs that'll be 20 foot tall and 1 that'll be 17 foot tall. And maximum total size in DBD is 200 square feet. And the combination of all 3 of theirs is 424.5 square feet. So the applicant stated, proposed signage is essential for the semi-isolated development and could even act as wayfinding for the development to assist patrons in locating the entrance to the indoor and outdoor areas. And I will just mention that thanks to one of the committee members who contacted me yesterday, I realized I left something out, and I apologize for that. So I sent you all an email yesterday with it, and part of that was all of the signage stuff, so that if you were reading this without it, you're probably thinking, what is she talking about? But once you could see them, especially the renderings, that would really help you. The applicant has a presentation that has some of that information in it, so I'm sure they'll be talking about that here in a minute. And I need to apologize to Mr. Hogan. Yesterday, that email I sent out bounced back from you, so you didn't receive the email I sent out yesterday. Sorry about that. As there are no surrounding residential or commercial uses, proposed signage will have minimal impact on the abutting properties, especially since proposed signs will not even be as tall as the adjacent elevated boulevard. In addition to patrons arriving by vehicle, because I'm not sure how much traffic uses that parking lot for Bass Pro. I was there really early, and there was like 3 of us in the parking lot. But the truck yard could also see patrons arriving from the Bricktown Canal and the Oklahoma River. And so, because this is where you get out of one and you can get into the other, and this is in the middle of that. So we could actually see interaction and engaging people in that fashion. They could schedule things, let's get off the river taxi, sit here for a bit, and then go to Bricktown for something. So the freestanding signs could enhance the experience of the patrons using that area. Then we go on to the fence. So they're proposing to use recycled doors for their fence. And the fence that's going to be located north of the building is considered a front yard fence because since the boulevard is their street frontage, any fence located in front of the building is a front yard fence. That is where their service area is going to be, their dumpster's going to be. And so they were wanting taller fences in that area, and they're proposing 80 inches using these doors, and that exceeds the maximum height allowed, which is 4 feet. So because of where this is located, what they're adjacent to, it's not like it's adjacent to sidewalks, because there's no sidewalk underneath elevated roadway. And staff had no issues with that height that they were requesting. There was one guideline also dealing with fences. So the fencing on the remainder of the project, they have kind of a picket fence that's kind of adjacent to the parking lot for part of that. They're going to have a solid hedge for part of it, and then there's some of it that is 3-foot tall doors, so they're cutting the doors down. And there's a guideline that we have that they could have 4-foot fence, but it shouldn't be more than 60% opaque. And so since the doors are 100% opaque, they don't really meet that. And so I bring that guideline up, and that is something that you all can approve. Since that fence is only 36 inches tall, the patrons could actually look over it. While they're sitting, they can look over it. They can see the Land Run Monument. And staff is supportive because it's not blocking that, because you can see over it. So staff recommendation is to approve. And if you all agree, you can totally read this. We could modify it however you want to do it. And so I'm going to read conditions. And so you're going to have 2 motions today. One is about the application itself, and one is about making a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment. So the first one, we're recommending conditions that the applicant obtains variances from the Board of Adjustment to the regulation requiring a minimum height of 3 stories or 50 feet, the regulation that the first 2 floors of new construction be at or within 10 foot of the street right-of-way, the type, maximum number, maximum size, maximum total size, and maximum height of freestanding signs, and maximum height of a front yard fence for that portion of the fence located north of the north wall of the building. And then the second motion we are recommending, provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for variances to exactly the same thing that I just said on the conditions. The regulation requiring a minimum height of 3 stories or 50 feet, the regulation that the first 2 floors of new construction be at or within 10 foot of the street right-of-way, the type, maximum number, maximum size, maximum total size, and maximum height of freestanding signs, and maximum height of a front yard fence for that portion of the fence located north of the north wall of the building. And we have someone representing, actually a couple of people representing the development team. We have Mr. Hogan here, as well as the attorney that's involved in this project, David Boggs. So do you have any questions for staff?
Can you clarify, are any of the signs being proposed taller than the proposed building height?
They've got 2 at 20 feet. Hang on just one second. They have 2 at 20 feet, and the building is proposed to be 20 feet 9 inches. So the building is 9 inches taller than the tallest sign.
Thank you.
And if I misspeak, please, somebody pipe up.
Any additional questions from committee members for staff?
I have a question. Dana Templeton. Are there any guidelines or regulations on material for doors? I mean, for the fencing? I know most of the fence has to be chain link fence with the plastic.
So bare chain link is not allowed, as you were.
Yeah, with the plastic.
It has to
right.
be the green or black
Black.
manufacturer coated. And I might have it in there, but, so, that's after there. Regulations. Fences and walls shall be constructed of durable, easily maintained materials such as, but not limited to, stone or simulated stone, ornamental metal, brick, chain link, as we just talked about with that coated, treated, stained, or painted wood panels. And so I would say that doors fall into that latter category, although normally people think of that as you go buy a panel at Lowe's, and that's what it is. And it goes on to say, standard chain link, wire mesh, barbed wire, razor wire, or other similar products shall be prohibited.
And I'll just add, as Laura read, it's materials should be including these, but not limited to these. So that gives you all the discretion to approve materials that are not in that list, but that you deem to be an appropriate material.
I have a follow-up question or comment. So just where you were reading with regard to fencing and walls, I find a sentence, a subparagraph that says that the fencing and walls need to be compatible and contribute to the overall character of the area. And I question whether or not having a door, fence, or wall, however you want to refer to it, is compatible with Bricktown.
I'll also have a question for the presenter when they're ready on what structure they're using to hold up these doors. How are they being, I mean, not that it's part of the requirements, but I guess I'm just being nosy.
Do we,
I'm gonna-
before we invite the applicants to present, do we have any additional questions for
Right,
the
because
staff
I was going to
member?
defer Barbara's question to them and on that guideline, so.
Okay, so I
You
think
have
please.
some questions as well. Are there any guidelines when it comes to parking space? I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but if there is an event happening downtown or Bricktown in this area, parking is everything is full. And adding another place to go to, I feel like it's just going to add more congestion into traffic.
So, yeah, so parking is not required in this zoning district. The DBD zoning does not require uses to provide specific parking for their use. So they don't have to provide additional parking, and they just happen to be next to a parking lot.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any additional questions for staff?
So, and I was just going to mention, so there were a couple of things that I'm sure you took note of that were asked of you about the fencing that I was going to.
Can I get clarification on, we didn't understand your question. We had trouble hearing you, I'm sorry.
Do you have your microphone?
Yeah,
on?
I think you were referring to a guideline that is actually, and I'll give the number, it's 3 fencing and walls, this is in River. And under that, materials and design. Fences and walls should complement the design of the associated, is that the one you were referring to, Barbara?
I am on page, I'm sorry, my mic fell. So,
Okay.
Page 32 of the zoning and planning code, and I'm looking at K13. And there's a subparagraph there that says to ensure that the design of fencing and walls are compatible with the development and contribute to its overall character. And further in that same article, there is a line item that says that the fences and walls should complement
the design of associated buildings.
Okay, hang on, let me find that last one. It's a different page depending on how you print it off, so
Okay.
it's page 35 if I sent you the handout. Under intent is the first thing she read, and I'm trying to find the second thing that you read.
It's the last one before L starts.
Before what?
Before L?
Yes.
Now, the material, fence, yes, I see that, so that's C, materials and design, this one.
Color materials should complement the design of the associated buildings.
In terms of
meaning
their
the
color.
buildings contained within the development.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Any more questions for staff?
Hearing
I-
none, oh, please.
Wait, I'm sorry. I've got my book marked up here. Murals, it's understood that the mural is going to need to go through somebody
So
else.
I referenced in the staff report that you are not taking action on the sign that is shown on the roof or any of the murals, because they were showing mural-type painting on the roof and on the walls. That would be coming back.
Okay. And I guess I need clarification as well on the signage guidelines, which is in the same document on the following page, that the signage should be in character of the surrounding district and adjacent architecture. And if what you're submitting in the sign package is what's going to be built, I would argue that it doesn't match the character of the adjacent architecture or surrounding district.
Well, so in terms of the David Box 522 Collicourt Drive, in terms of surrounding district, one of the oddities that we have is this is not Bricktown. We are not within the Bricktown district. And so you have this very odd standalone parcel that frankly only exists because the relocation of Interstate 40. And so this green space frankly has no other type of use that could happen here. And so it's intended to be this gathering area where people along the river, people along the canal, and people that are perhaps experiencing Bricktown could come to. But we have to analyze this based upon its surroundings, and its surroundings are, frankly, extremely unique. We have a sea of parking to our east. We have an elevated roadway to our north that, frankly, it strikes me that it's hard to imagine another use happening here. I struggle to think of anybody wanting to build a building here with an elevated roadway. And so this is why, of course, we have the variance process when you have unique characteristics in a particular tract, which, of course, is one of the statutory requirements that you find something peculiar about the subject site. Here, there are many things that are peculiar. And so what we've tried to create is this kind of standalone independent use that will serve a broader area, but specifically have a lot of, we think, positives with the pedestrian nature, with the people on the canal that otherwise wouldn't exist. And so when you look at the overall development plan that you're going to see here in a moment, we hope that you'll see that these fence panels, although perhaps not appropriate in other places, here really tie in with the overall development scheme that we have employed here. This is a use that exists kind of across the country. These are very popular uses. This is a use that there's a lot of excitement about, specifically at this location. And so we do think it meets that criteria in that it ties in with the overall design of this project. And because there's nothing that surrounds it to really check it against in terms of, if we're in the middle of Bricktown, yeah, this is not going to be appropriate, right? But here we're next to a parking lot and an elevated freeway. And so we think that it does kind of check those boxes. But perhaps it makes some sense now to turn it over to the design team, kind of walk through all those images so you can kind of see the inspiration and why we're here. And then I'll get back and kind of walk through the variance process.
Okay, well, that comment was with regard to signage. It was the next area in the zoning.
I do agree that it would be helpful to hear the applicant's presentation, and then any additional comments we have may be better informed. So I'd like to invite the applicant to address the committee.
Hello, everybody. How are you today?
Hi.
I'm Alicia with the Truck Yard. Oh, sure, okay, I'm in charge now, y'all, so just hang on for the ride, and make sure I know what I'm doing here. I'm Alicia with the Truck Yard. We're really super excited about this project. We feel like it's a very unique location and a very unique and exciting opportunity for us to kind of tie the districts together, be near the canal, and be near a lot of events. Years ago, I started building in Oklahoma City with another concept called Santa Fe Cattle Company, and I did about 10 of them in Oklahoma, so I'm actually really excited to be back because I've had a lot of fun here. So just to tell you a little bit more about our location, I don't know why it went to Vimeo. See, that's why I shouldn't be in charge. Where's the next?
Oh, is it skipping twice?
Yeah. How do I just, there we go. There we go, okay. There we go, do the wheel. I told y'all, hang on. We are a very laid back, come as you are kind of concept. We're very artisanal, we're very creative. We partner with a lot of local artists, and we like to have a fun, chill, laid back, funky vibe where everybody from 8 to 80 can come with their kids and come with their dogs and just hang out and enjoy the weather, enjoy some good food. We have rotating food trucks as well, so you can come, you know, twice in a week and have different cuisines and different meals. So we like to also help incubator restaurants and restaurants that are local and local communities to kind of get their feet off of the ground. Our founder, Jason Boso, who is a creative and culinary genius, has also been featured on Guy Fieri's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and we have probably the best cheesesteak you'll ever have outside of Philly. Our vibe is very laid back, live music, dogs, just hanging out in the patio area. The center shot is one of our properties in the stockyards in Fort Worth called Second Rodeo Brewing Company, where we were not able to have the full outdoor experience, so we installed a giant operable glass roof so that way we still had the indoor-outdoor experience. Our outdoor space is focused on huge patios, large outdoor areas, huge specimen trees. We love the shade because who wants to go out and sit out in the yard in the middle of July, without enough shade to stay comfortable? We have a great curated bar and craft cocktails. We have a couple of breweries as well where we have our own beers and own sours. We have the different food trucks that rotate as well, so that way we can, again, give opportunities for local incubator restaurants to, you know, get their name out there and get their feet off of the ground and allow our customers to have a different experience every time they come and have variety. We have live music almost every day of the week, a lot of local artists, you know, no real big name bands going on here, but you know, this is one of the places where singers and songwriters kind of get their start. And we're very family friendly. Before I even came on board with the Truck Yard, I would take my daughter at the time, who was 3, to the Truck Yard in Dallas and go hang out with my friends, bring some Play-Doh. Everybody would bring their dog, she'd sit and color, and we'd all just get to sit, kick back, have some food, and listen to some music, and the kids had a great time. We have lots of outdoor games too, like Battleship and Cornhole, and we've done bocce ball, and we've done outdoor, you know, big pool tables like on the ground, so a little bit of everything to keep everybody entertained. We are the number 17 most visited bar pub in the nation for our Fort Worth location, Second Rodeo Brewery. We're 2 of the top 10 most visited bars or pubs in Texas for the Colony and Fort Worth locations, and all of our locations are the number 1 visited within a 15-mile radius. Again, lots of people. On a good weekend, we'll have 10,000 people visiting us, 600 dogs, 1,400 kids. It's a lot of kids. About 10% of our guests are ages 10 or younger, and about 20% of our guests are 55 or older. We're very family friendly. We're very casual, come as you are. We have a very approachable price point, so that way we don't seem out of reach for people, so that way the average everyday person can come enjoy some time outdoors as well. We are labeled a 5-star dive. People are really talking. We are blowing up on social media, our Instagram, our Facebook pages. Everybody loves the Truck Yard. We have tons of followers on Instagram and Facebook. We've been featured in, we get 50 million media impressions annually from Dallas Observer, Dallas Morning News, Zagat, D, Food Network, National Geo, and Travel Channel. This again is just some photos kind of our vibe. This is our Dallas location with a treehouse bar, some of our food trucks, our stage and live music, and of course another cute puppy. This is the current location today. As stated, it's a very interesting property, and I don't really see, I concur that there's a lot of uses that would be willing to take this property and see it as being a successful location. We see this as being a very successful location because a lot of our clientele are very active. Families are up and down the canal, and we feel like whether you're going to an event, we're a destination location, or even when there's not events, that we're going to be bringing more people to this area to experience more of what OKC has to offer in this area. Here is a couple of aerial views. This would be from the southeast looking to the northwest. You can see the elevated highway in the back. Again, we are not focusing on the murals today. They're just kind of placeholders. Those are in design development. We're planning on working with Stephen Grounds, who's a local Native American artist, to help create the murals. This is a view from the west looking east at the property. These are our signs. Our signs are actually, the one sign over here, it already exists, so that's why we want to use it. It's actually a vintage motel sign from Route 66 that we are having refurbished and repurposed for this. A lot of what we do is try to take everyday things or vintage things and kind of make them new and fun again. We like to have a very artisanal craft kind of approach. We love being creative, and we love thinking outside of the box. And then our Enter Here sign is also going to be crafted by an artist and carved. This is looks like hoodoos, so we wanted it to be a little bit unique and kind of, you know, fall in line with, you know, nature in Oklahoma and different properties. This is a view inside of our yard area, kind of looking at the food truck area. The food truck Eat Here sign is our signature sign. We have it at every single location. We happened to run across a bunch of these vintage signs and bought them all up. And so I think after this one, we're actually going to have to start making them and making them look vintage. So we are very casual, lots of cool sling chairs, you know, that reminds you kind of the 70s and 80s. Again, this mural right here is just kind of a placeholder until we have the final design. We have fire pits, Adirondack chairs. This trailer here would be one of our kind of private trailers for rent. So if you were having a birthday or something like that, you can have the pink trailer with your pink flamingos and your little white picket fence and lawn chairs. This is a view from the yard, kind of looking at the building and the large covered patio. We do heaters, we do fans. We try to keep it, you know, as climate controlled as we can for an indoor-outdoor experience year-round to be comfortable. This is just a view of the games area where we've got some cornhole for now. I know we're going to plan some other fun games for the kids out there. We're also going to have a little outdoor tiki bar area. We're going to bring in some palm trees, and we're going to, you know, have a little taste of Hawaii here down by the river. This is just another trailer area in the center. We are also going to do 2 large teepees as well that we're going to hire local Native American artisans to build and create for us. So that way those can also be spaces that could be rented, or you can just hang out in them when there's not big events going on or anything like that. This is a view from the river kind of looking at our property. So the thought is on, you know, with the door fence and the use for the development, I feel like these really fit in because when you're looking at this rendering, you're just looking at a bunch of multicolored doors because you know how much rendering artists make, and if we had time, if we had, you know, $20,000, we could have it exactly how we wanted it. But what we're planning on doing with the doors is using reclaimed doors, bringing in color, but then on the taller portions here are kind of artistic and creative design, which I think is something that's kind of fun and cool about Oklahoma City. Like every time I'm here, I see like people with pink hair, I see artists, so, you know, I see a lot of cool things going on. is that, you know, it's different, it's unique, but what we're planning on doing is for these doors, some of these doors are gonna be doors like from famous movies. Like we wanna do a Dr. TARDIS police call box door. We wanna do the purple door from Friends. We wanna put in the Hobbit door from Lord of the Rings. We want to do something unique and creative and artistic that makes people say, you know, wow, like I really wanna go here. This is such a cool area. You know, it's not going to be just a bunch of old doors haphazardly thrown up. And we try to use our creativity and quirkiness to follow the guidelines that it would be a wood panel fence. And I think that's it. And just want to say thank you guys very much. We're very excited about this location, and we hope to get all of this done soon so we can get in for building permit and get going before the winter hits.
So I know there were some questions that came up before from the committee that needed to be addressed to the applicants that you had asked of me. One dealt with the structure of the door fence from Dana. You had several things dealing with the guidelines on the fences and the signs fitting in. And so I just want to make sure someone on your team addresses
Sorry,
those.
I mean, have we addressed?
Can I ask a general question first? So I went back and found some newspaper articles that announced that you guys were working on this about last year, right around this time. So you've been working on it for a while.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm looking at your drawings. Are you using an Oklahoma architect on these plans?
No, we're not using an Oklahoma architect for the building, but we're using local Oklahoma engineers for everything else.
Okay, so the architect is out of Texas?
Yes, he's out of Dallas. It's more conducive for us in our development because we're located in Dallas, and for us to have to come to Oklahoma for every meeting or Zoom meeting or any, you know, it's a little bit easier for information than being local, and he knows us and knows the concept as far as that goes, but we are using local engineers for other disciplines.
So are you aware that you need to be licensed in Oklahoma to practice here?
He has a license or has somebody in his firm.
No,
that
no,
has a
no, the
license.
architect.
Oh, the architect? Does that have something to do with RDC or building permit?
We'll let the city attorney address that.
I believe that I'm not wearing my, I believe that for the certificate of approval application, those I don't believe require signed, stamped drawings.
Correct.
And I would add for clarification that architects can be licensed in multiple states.
That's correct, but they need to be licensed in the state of Oklahoma to practice here.
Well,
I
he's
would imagine.
built a lot of projects in Oklahoma, so I'm pretty sure he is. This, you know, we're working with Johnson and Associates as well, so
Well,
I'm pretty sure
I
they've
would
got
just
their bases
caution you to
covered.
check with the Board of Governors, because the building that you're proposing here does require an architect's seal.
Yes, of course, all of our drawings are always signed and sealed, and we follow all regulations
So
wherever
we will meet
can.
all state, local, federal rules that exist. One thing I think is important, this is a city-owned property, Ocura controls it. One of the reasons we took so long to get here is we were working through the design process, and we only came forward once Ocura had signed off on our concept. So whatever the state would require, whatever the city would require in terms of professional licensure will be adhered to. Again, Johnson Associates is local, I'm local, we will check all those boxes. I'm not sure it has any relevance to your decision today on the case before you.
No, it's just a pet peeve of mine because I'm an Oklahoma architect. And so when I see these projects come, whether it's on the Riverfront or another committee, and the architect has not gone through the proper procedures with the Board of Governors to get a certificate of authority to practice here, it just kind of sits wrong with me.
Understood.
Well,
Can we go back to, and look at a screen of the elevation of your rendering and not the thank you thing? I think it was the very first one. Yeah, go back. Go forward.
Oh, forward?
2 more. There you go. Okay.
Did you have a question about the structure of the fence?
I did see how the doors were going to be supported with your frame and a cross bracing. The doors.
The wood doors,
Right.
Again, these are renderings, they're not exactly 100% representational of like structural issues. It'll be steel post
That's fine.
concrete.
Tube. That's fine. I'm studying the entry sign. I love the truck yard sign, the vintage hotel sign, and your eat here signs.
It's really cool.
It's just the enter sign that's, I'm having difficulty with how we're going to fit that into the,
I'd just
code.
like to comment that obviously the city has invested a lot over decades in the river and the canal, and I think the regulations that are in place to set the design guidelines that this committee oversees are vitally important for ensuring that investment generates a good return for our city. I think this development is obviously in violation of numerous guidelines, which Laura enumerated in detail. But at the same time, I think that this is an extremely well thought out project. I think it's a great example of the value of this committee that despite this project not adhering to the letter of every guideline, it does, in my opinion, adhere to the intent of the guidelines, which is to better develop activity and investment in Oklahoma City. I think this location, as you mentioned, is a challenging one to imagine a different type of development sitting on. And I think that the goal of your concept to attract people here, certainly the viability of your business plan, will do a lot for this lower Bricktown, North River Shore area in just drawing people south of the boulevard. So for my opinion, I wanted to commend you on a very well thought out project.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I mean, your comments are a good segue. Yes, this does have several portions of the guidelines that we don't adhere to. And in our opinion, that is because of the unique nature of the site. There is no street that fronts it, right? When you think of development, it's really geared, the guidelines are geared towards the interaction of the pedestrian and the street, right? Well, we don't have one. The only street that we perhaps have is an elevated roadway that sits 23 feet above grade. I struggle to consider the parking lot, the overflow parking lot of Bass Pro to be street frontage. And so we kind of sit here with these guidelines that are required to be adhered to, but yet we're not the type of site that the guidelines were intended to be required to adhere to. And so that is why the Board of Adjustment process exists. So of course we're asking you to do two things. One, approve the project, but also provide a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment on those four issues that we believe we need variances for.
I just want to make a comment, and I work with children and youth, and I'm just thinking about everything that all the situations that I would not want to bring my children to this place, although, and still I consider myself a young person, and I would like to come, maybe without. I'm just having a hard time picturing children and adults in the same place, because to me, this project, which is, I agree, it's well thought out, it's very speaking to the community now and what is happening in the city and the growth and all that. But I am having a hard time picturing this is something that is family friendly because of the emphasis on the bar. Sure. and music and all that stuff. And I don't know if you guys have walked around the river or have taken a cruise, but especially during the weekend, at night, it's full of teenagers. And that's more than likely, those are gonna be your pedestrians, or the majority of your pedestrians in that area. So I'm not saying it's not right. I mean, I'm glad we have the recommendations and to, making sure that it's meeting everything that needs to meet. But I'm just having a hard time picturing in that sense of how family-friendly can be?
So there's two things to address there. First, on the family-friendly piece, there is the food garden that exists in Midtown. Blue Garden. Are you familiar with Blue Garden?
It's not Blue Gardens anymore. It's
City Garden.
City Garden, whatever it's called. It's a lesser concept than what you have here. I have 2 kids. We live in Heritage Hills. We have often ridden our bikes down there, enjoyed being outside, enjoyed food. There's also a bar component. Same thing across the street with the Collective. Food, alcohol, still kid-friendly. They have live music. But your question's really getting to the appropriateness of the use. That's not what is before you. The use is absolutely allowed by right under the zoning. What we're asking for is design approval, not approval of a concept.
And I understand that. That's why I said I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you.
As I was saying, 10% of our clients are under the age of 10, and it is very family friendly, and our average drink is only 2 drinks per person. So it's not exactly what you would think. It's very laid back, and like I said, before I even came to work and be part of the truck yard, I was taking my kids to the truck yard to hang out with my friends.
Thank you. Are there, please.
There's a facility similar to this in Arcadia, and yeah, I've gone to it, and it is fun, and there have been children there. So, I think my objection more is directed toward how it combines with the surrounding area. We've got the bronze statues there, we've got the monument there, and I think that this development is not embracing what's already there. And I find that in the ordinance here with regard to the signage as well as with the fencing. And so my objection is that it's not visually compatible with the buildings or the site or what was intended there. And that's my objection.
I'm going to let Mr. Hogan address that.
Thanks for those comments and totally appreciate where you're coming from.
Can you identify yourself just for the record, please?
Excuse me?
Just identify yourself for the record, Mr. Hogan.
I'm sorry, I'm Randy Hogan. I'm the developer of Lower Bricktown, which is everything new in Bricktown, across from the baseball stadium. And God, we started this maybe 20 years ago, so from scratch. And there's a blade of grass maybe or two, and no water in the canal. And so our goal at the time was a mixed-use entertainment development, and worked with the Urban Renewal Authority from start, and they've been terrific to work with. And anyway, that's kind of the background of what we have. So we're about 500,000 square feet right now, and we always try to get new energy. And frankly, even before COVID, we kind of felt like we were getting a little stale, like we were kind of yesterday's news when we had opened. We had Harkins Theaters. They're Scottsdale, Arizona based. They were the theater, and then Warren, opened and more. And, we kind of saw Midtown, which I love. I mean, some really cool districts open up after us. And so we started literally pre-COVID trying to figure out, okay, how do we bring new energy? And then also your comment about the land run sculpture, which we absolutely love, but nobody would ever get down and see it, and that was one of our goals long term, was what do we do at this site that brings people down, they actually look and see the land run sculpture versus just drive by it. And as I was actually working with the Oklahoma City Thunder on what was Thunder Alley, before that got hit on pause twice. We started working with Truck Yard because we thought it just is a great concept. It's literally one of the most sought after entertainment concepts, indoor, outdoor, in Texas. And got real excited working with them. It turned out that site was just too small, frankly. It's too small for about anything. And we kind of redirected there because I thought it's the perfect way to get a lot of people down at that end of our site. And also, to me, it was a great connecting point between the river, this site, and Lower Bricktown, even though it is the southern part of Lower Bricktown. So it was a connector for the areas, and as we've already discussed, we were really out of ideas for that area. We laid out a hotel one time, and it just bumps against the freeway, right? I mean, it's just the site's it's 38,000 square feet. And the only way this worked is we had the parking field, which, to your point on parking, which is obviously a sensitive matter, we put in 2,400 parking spaces in Lower Bricktown, which is free to anybody that comes and visits our patrons. But outside of Bass Pro's Spring and Fall Classic, and maybe at sometimes, fireworks and the Dodgers playing, we'll get some traffic down there. We had Tulsa King, Paramount leased a lot for their trailers and things. That's really the only time that area is used, which helped make the deal with Truck Yard. And so, anyway, I think it is an eclectic use, but it really works, and people love it. We're thrilled that they've, we're their first spot outside of Texas, and frankly, outside of another project we've got, the Half. I don't know if you've been to it at Britton. We have Chicken and Pickle. And that's been really a big deal for that project. And outside of Chicken and Pickle and Truck Yard, really, they have that same energy that's very hard to find in at least what we do. And again, appreciate all the comments. It's such an eclectic design, but that's what makes it so much fun. And on the entertainment piece, that's what we're all about, is trying to bring those uses into Oklahoma City and just keep it moving, And so anyway, I don't know if I answered anybody's question. I probably rambled, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I was just going to comment that I think to Barbara's point, she's talking about more about, what I feel she's saying is that the monument, they're bronze, they're reverent, they're nice, and then this venue, which the concept is fun and great, is just got a lot of rust. You know what it doesn't rise to the level of, appearance maybe as monuments and the brick and everything around it. It's a little bit maybe I'm trying to say nice.
Just a little different. I think there's enough separation between the two that I think.
By the colored doors?
No. I don't mean by design separation. Okay. I think there's enough physical separation from it that it probably ends up working pretty well. And again, it gets that many more people down there to actually see it. Mm-hmm. I think that was some of the things I've had. The Centennial Commission, and we worked closely with Lee Allen Smith and Blake Wade way back when. Mm-hmm. When are you going to do something down there so people actually get down and see it? Because what we found is that unless you're walking past buildings or restaurants, you kind of stop. You just.
I'd like to make a comment. I don't mean to sound like I don't like the design or the concept. I think it's great, and like I mentioned, I've gone to a venue similar to this outside of Oklahoma City. My point is I'm looking at the zoning and planning code, and I'm finding words in there that would dictate something other than what's presented. And I think that that's more our job. I think integrates with the Riverfront Trail, contributes to the overall character. You shouldn't block, the fencing should not block off different uses or properties. The materials and design of the fence should complement the design. So I'm seeing all these words and I'm having a conflict looking at the proposal because they're not in line with what we're supposed to be policing, for a better word.
On the legal side, I have no clue.
Yeah. So, I would respectfully disagree, and of course, your staff also disagrees because they recommend approval of the project and also the variances. In terms of the fencing fitting in with the development, it of course fits in with the subject development. And I would argue that there's nothing else to fit in with. I guess in theory, if we built a concrete fence we'd be fitting in with the, Oklahoma City Boulevard and the elevated roadway. We have a extremely unique site that sits in the middle of, frankly, nowhere that could otherwise not be developed. I cannot imagine another development ever being here. I can't imagine anybody wanting to build a building here. There's no street. There's no way to get people here. The only type of use that would be permitted, the only type of use that would be successful here would be something that's a destination. And that's exactly what this is. So in terms of your role as policing of the guidelines and the ordinance, I would direct you to your staff report. The professional planners and architects that exist within the staff have analyzed this critically and each time recommend approval. So we think that this is a use that is important to the city, certainly important to Lower Bricktown, important to the river, and provides people with the opportunity to congregate in an area of the city that would otherwise be a place where trash got gathered off of a parking lot in an elevated roadway.
And if I may add another clarification for the sake of bringing us closer to a decision, what is for us to decide today is not whether it meets the letter of all the guidelines, because it doesn't. The applicant and the staff have noted that it doesn't meet the letter of the guidelines. What's being asked of us is to determine in that gray area if we believe that this meets enough of the intent of the guidelines to make a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment. And they're going to have to go before the Board of Adjustment because it does not meet the letter of the guidelines. So it's a subjective thing for us to determine, each of us, whether we believe it adheres enough to the intent of the guidelines.
But it doesn't come back to us. And so
It will not.
Right, and so that's my comment. So if I firmly believe that a door fence or pole signage is not appropriate, I mean, the building is fine, the building height, I understand all that, but if I don't feel firmly that it follows the rules, whether I like the design or not, if I approve it to go to the board for a variance, it's done. And so this is my opportunity to look at the guidelines and the ordinance and what I have in front of me, and I have been given to make that judgment and determine whether or not it follows it, regardless of whether it has the variance.
So in terms of fence material, we adhere to the regulations.
Right.
I mean, it's painted doors, but it's wood material, which is a material permitted under the code.
Right.
Now, the height is, of course, what we're seeking a variance from, but not the materials.
Right, and you're right, John, it's all subjective because it says the character of the surrounding architecture and anything else, the walkways and all that type of thing. So yes, it is subjective, and so I'm just getting my opinion out.
And we certainly appreciate your attention to detail.
I do have one more question, basically for Laura. When we are approving this with their things, not just they've approved it with variances. They just didn't recommend it. They recommended it with variances. So with these variances, I don't have issues with the signage, most of the signage, but there's specific signs. Can we separate out signs in a way to say they're not quite meeting? I mean, none of the signs actually do meet the guidelines, but some of them, and maybe it's just because I don't think they're appropriate as an architect. I don't think they work. But can we, like 3 of the 5 signs look great? Can we not say the other 2?
If you would like to make a motion which differs from the staff recommended motion, you are entitled to do so.
Okay. But I needed a more of a basis for it. You can't just say because I personally don't like it. I need to be able to say because it doesn't meet, but anyway.
I was just going to note that there's 2 parts to this. The variances are for kind of the black and white height and size and number requirements.
Well, it's also for type.
And sign type, yes. That's separate from the design. They don't need a variance for sign design.
Right.
But if this committee has concerns about the sign design, or for that matter, the fence design, then that's something that can be handled separately from the need for the variance for the more regulatory features.
So you could actually, if let's just say you look down the list of the project, and you decide under signage that for whatever reason, you don't like sign A3, okay? I'm just pulling it out of the air, which is eat here. So you could make a recommendation for approval excluding that item. And then I could hurriedly decide to tell you what revisions to the conditions if you wanted to do that. And if you got a second, then you'd be looking at making a motion modifying their proposal. So you could do that, because I think that's what I was hearing you say.
Right,
That
but
there's
I'm
stuff
not-
you like, but then there's some stuff that you don't.
So you said like, yesterday you sent the pictures of the signage or something, and I don't know if I received those. I mean, I was out of the office most of the day yesterday.
I sent an email yesterday, and they're not on there, David. We don't have the application and anything they've sent us here, which that's been for the presentation.
Oh, okay, yeah,
you
I did
just-
not get
Did you
this.
just hand her all the stuff? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if anybody else needs to see them, I have the file copy if you need to see them. So there were numerous pictures of the various signs, this being one of the pictures I think that you got.
And these aren't in our presentation, they weren't in the presentation.
No,
Okay.
I mean, they're
that, one of them is, that one, I think.
not in
right
that
there is.
form. They're
That's
in
this-
here. You can see all of them through
Yeah.
different
Yes,
Angle.
yes, I see, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that was attached was the benches and the bike racks and stuff that they were wanting to do. That was also attached in the email yesterday.
Those are fine too.
I want to make note about this article that was published a year ago where there's a quote in it that says they try to design it to give it an Oklahoma feel. And quite frankly, I don't think a tiki bar is an Oklahoma feel. So
But they
that's
are
just
on
my
trend
opinion.
right now, so.
So I'm not sure that specific element is up to your vote today. Whether or not they have a tiki bar or some other type of German beer garden contained therein, I'm not sure that's really up for debate. So I think Mark pointed out, one of, I think, the unique features here is what is not allowed is a pole sign. When we think of a pole sign, traditionally it is a metal pole with a sign up top. It's unattractive, they're problematic. This perhaps doesn't meet the definition of a monument sign, but it's clad in brick. It is not the steel pole that you traditionally think of North May Avenue. Those are pole signs. That's what the new code is going to seek to get rid of. These types of signs, frankly, I don't view as a pole sign because they're clad in material consistent with the area. So yes, we need a variance because it's technically a pole sign, but if it's tied to these design concepts, these are not the type of pole signs that are intended to, it's blocked, that are intended to be removed.
Are there any additional questions by committee members for the applicant or staff?
And if you need to see any component of it, I do have everything, including the stuff that I sent you yesterday, in this stack. So you're welcome to borrow this and look at it if you want to.
Is it possible for us to make recommendation on the items separately, like the fencing separate from the signage?
That's what I was trying to point out when
Yeah,
I was
okay.
talking with Dana, that if you wanted to modify, you could pull things out of your motion and address them differently. It'll just make it a little more complicated with the conditions, but
For the sake of
figure
my
it out.
client, perhaps, and everyone's time, and considering we have a Board of Adjustment hearing this afternoon, I'd like to know kind of a pulse of where the broader committee is on these items so my client can make some decisions on design elements.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Scenic River Overlay Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report, with the conditions that the applicant obtains variances from the Board of Adjustments to the regulations requiring a minimum height of 3 stories or 50 foot. The regulation of the first 2 floors of new construction be at or within 10 foot of the street right-of-way, the type, maximum number, maximum size, maximum total size, and maximum height of the freestanding signs and maximum height of the front yard fence for that portion of the fence located north of the north wall of the building.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Montoya, second.
Thank you. Moved by Heisel, seconded by Montoya.
You got a little fast on that.
So
recording.
that went just as read directly off the thing with no
Correct.
exceptions? I don't think mine's popped up yet. Yeah.
Would you like to take a verbal vote? Committee Member Templeton.
I'm still,
Motion passes.
And then I think we
There-
need a secondary motion on the recommendation.
We do.
Yeah, hang on just one second. I wanted to capture that because we had 2 that recused themselves. We had 1 no.
5-1 with 2 abstentions.
Yeah, and 5 yeses. Okay, thanks. Sorry.
I would welcome a second motion.
I'd make a motion to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustments for variances to the regulation requiring a minimum height of 3 stories or 50 foot. The regulation that the first 2 floors of the new construction be at or within 10 foot of the street right-of-way, the type, the maximum number, maximum size, maximum total size, and maximum height of freestanding signs and maximum height of a front yard fence for that portion of the fence located north of the north wall of the building.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Montoya, second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 7, other business, 7A, 2023 meeting schedule. Laura?
First, let me apologize for my Harley Davidson going off a while ago when my phone rang. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
So it's that time of year. We didn't have any dates that a holiday is impacting next year. Occasionally, we have 4th of July that lands on that Thursday, but these are all the first Thursdays. The only thing we've done this year is we've added a statement at the bottom because we've been having some issues with applications coming in and they're not complete and people assume they're on an agenda and when they're not, they're not happy. But it's very difficult for us to put something on an agenda if it's not complete. And if people get it in so late that we don't even have time to get the staff report written. So that right there is really the only change other than the dates.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I apologize. Let's stop for a minute. Can somebody go open the door and say, Scott, can you come back in? I am so sorry. I
Thank
forgot
you.
about Scott.
I'm here forever.
That's funny.
Thank you, Laura.
I'm sorry, Scott.
Did I break it?
We forgot about you for a minute there, so I'll back up a little bit. Oh. So I was commenting on the schedule for next year. There's no holidays that fall on your meeting dates, but we have added a paragraph at the bottom to make sure people are aware it has to be a complete application for them to get on the agenda. So the chair was just asking for a motion when I realized you weren't back. Sorry.
So I would welcome a motion for this.
Montoya, motion to approve the 2023 meeting schedule.
Thank you. And it passes. Agenda item number 8A, administrative approval report. Number 1, SRCA 22-00014 at 1513 Exchange Avenue. Laura, anything we need to know about that one?
They just, a small addition to the Public Works River Maintenance Facility and kind of shifted some stuff around on the outside. So it's so far off Exchange, you probably won't even notice what they're doing.
Item 8B, comments from planning department staff.
Right now, I don't have anything, but I need to leave the window open for just a few more days. Hopefully, early next week, you'll get an email from me telling you that you have a buy next month, and so we get a break.
Okay.
And thank you for all of the discussion, the phone calls I got from some members. Please know that you can always call and ask me questions or ask for more information or whatever when you're looking at agenda items. And I do appreciate being contacted by people.
Item 8C, comments from committee members. I'd like to say welcome to Tiffany. We're glad to have you.
Yes.
Item 8D, next meeting date to be determined, but tentatively scheduled for Thursday, November 3rd, 2022. And with that, we will adjourn. Thank you very much.